All right, so the first thing you should always do when you're solving an equation is to make sure that there's nothing you can put together on one side. So I have a 10 and I have a negative 4x, and I can't put those together because they're not like terms. But I do notice that over here on this other side, I have a number with an x. So that means I want to get this negative 4x to combine with this over here, but in order to do that, I have to move it to the other side. So I'm going to add the 4x so that I can combine it with the one that's on the other side. And I have to do the opposite because I'm moving across the equal sign. So this will cancel, and on this side I just have 10 equals, and then negative 9x plus 4x would give me negative 5x. Now that I've got my x's together, I can solve for that x. So the thing that's happening to x right now is I'm multiplying by negative 5. So to get rid of that negative 5, I will divide by negative 5. So negative 5 divided by negative 5 just makes a 1x. And 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2. And I don't like for this variable to be on the right, so I'm going to put it on the left. And I'm going to put the negative 2 on the right. And then if I wanted to check myself, I would just plug in for the negative, or for the x on this side, and I would plug in for the x on this side, and I would work both sides out to see if that was correct. So I look over here. All I have on the left-hand side is 5p, so I can't do anything with that. And then on the right-hand side, I have 24 minus 3p. I can't combine those because they're not like terms. But I do notice that I have a p over here, and I have a p over here. But I want those to be together, so I'm going to move this negative 3p. So I'm going to add 3p since I'm subtracting 3p, which means on this side, 5p plus 3p would give me 8p. I still have that 24, so I drop that. And then the negative 3p and the positive 3p cancel. And now all I have to do to solve for p is look at it and say, okay, I'm multiplying by 8, so I'm going to divide by 8. So 8 divided by 8 is just 1p equals 24 divided by 8, which is 3. Now I want to show you something that a lot of people do, and then it causes them some headaches. So let's say that I didn't move the 3p. Let's say I decided to move the 5p. Now normally if you do that, this over here becomes 0, and then I have 24 minus 8p. But what people will do is, instead of saying this is 0, they'll say it's negative 8p equals 24. But they didn't move that 3 over here, right? They moved this over here. And you shouldn't do that because then you have two things over here. Then you're still going to have to solve by subtracting 24 and dividing by negative 8. It's going to cause you to have a lot more steps. Instead, if you look at it and you say, okay, well, I have a p over here and I have a p over here. If I move this p, then I'm going to have to move the 24. So if you kind of give it just a little bit of thought and say, okay, if I put my p's on this side, then all I'm going to have to do is divide. All right, so that's kind of an example of what not to do. Now, if you do that, it's not the end of the world as long as you actually wrote a 0 on that side. All right, so now we've got some stuff where we're going to have to do a little work before we start combining things on both sides. So I look on this side and I see that I need to distribute this 1/2. So I take 1/2 times 6h. That's essentially just saying what's half of 6, which is 3. And then what's half of negative 4, that would be negative 2, equals, and then there's nothing to do on this side, so I'm just going to drop down that stuff right there. All right, so I look and I see that I have a 3h and a negative 2. I can't put those together. And I have a negative 5h plus 1. I can't put those together. So I now have h's that need to go together, and then I also have numbers. So it's to your benefit to move the h's to one side and then move the number to the other side. And sometimes you can do that in one step, but we're going to do it in two just so we don't get confused. So I like for my variable to be on the left, so if I can do that, that's what I'm going to do. So since I have a negative 5h, I'm going to add 5h, and it's going to have to go over here with the 3h because those are the ones that go together, right? So over here, those will cancel. 3h and 5h make 8h. Then I still have the minus 2 equals, those canceled, so I still have the 1. Now it's just as simple, okay, we'll have to solve for h. I'm multiplying by 8, I'm subtracting 2, and if I go backwards with SADMIP, I have to undo the subtraction first, so I will add 2. So I get 8h is equal to 1 plus 2, which is 3. And then I have to divide by the 8, just like in the previous lessons. So I get h equals 3 over 8 does not reduce. And there I have my answer. So on number 4, on this side of the equal sign, I have to distribute this negative 3/4. And on this side of the equal sign, I'm going to have to distribute 3. So if I take negative 3/4 times 8n, you can grab your calculator and say negative, and then get your little fraction button, 3 over 4, arrow over to get off your fraction, times 8, and that gives you negative 6. So I get negative 6n. And then you have negative 3/4 times 12, which is going to give you negative 9. And if you don't know how to do that by hand, this is how you do that by hand. You're multiplying by 12 over 1, right? 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. Or you can grab your calculator, and there's nothing wrong with that either. So we have 3 times n is 3n, and 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. All right, so now we've got all of this. I notice that I can't put these together because they're not like terms, and I can't put these together because they're not like terms. But I do know that I need to take and move this n over here. So since this is a positive 3n, I'm going to subtract 3n and put it with the negative 6n on the other side. So this cancels. And negative 6n minus 3n is negative 9n. I still have the minus 9 equals, and then over here I still have negative 9. So this n is being multiplied by negative 9, and I'm subtracting 9 from it. So the first thing I undo is subtraction. So I add the n, or the 9. So this makes 0. So that gives me negative 9 on this side. And negative 9 plus 9 gives me 0. And here's where you have to be careful because a lot of people mess up here. I still have to divide by negative 9, right? N is still not by itself. So I divide by the negative 9, and I get n equals 0 divided by negative 9. Now some people will actually put a number there that I don't know where they get. That's just 0, right, when 0 is on top. And if you're unsure, grab your calculator and say 0 divided by negative 9, or 9, whatever it was, and you get 0, okay? All right, so same thing here. I'm looking on this side. There's nothing that I have to do to simplify. I look on this side. I have a 3x plus 10. I can't put those together because they're not like terms. So I'm going to get my x's together. Since I'm adding 3x here, I will subtract 3x. Negative 2x minus 3x is negative 5x equals, I have a 10 left over on this side. Then since I'm multiplying x by negative 5, I will divide by negative 5. And x is equal to negative 2. All right, so on number 6, I'm going to look on this side, and I see that I need to distribute 2. So I get 2 times 3n is 6n, and 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, is equal to 0.5. That's the same thing as a half. So half of 10 is 5 minus 0.5 times a negative n, which I don't really like the 0.5. I'm going to make that, well, I'll leave it at 0.5, even though I don't really like decimals. All right, so you could also say 1/2 right there if you wanted to. So I can't put these together on this side because they are not like terms. I can't put these together on this side because they are not like terms. So I'm going to go ahead and get my n's together. Since I'm subtracting 0.5n, I'm going to add the 0.5. So 6n plus 0.5n would be 6.5n. I still have the minus 8 equals 5, and then back here, that canceled. Now I just solved for this n. I'm multiplying by 6.5. I'm subtracting 8. So the first thing I'm going to do is I will add the 8. So those cancel over here. I'm left with the 6.5n equals 8 plus 5, which is 13. And then the last thing I have to do is to undo the multiplying by dividing by 6.5. So if you don't know what that is, you can take your calculator and do 13 divided by 6.5. And that gives you 2. If you think about it, 6 times 2 would be 12, and then 2 halves would make another whole. All right, so I notice on this side I need to distribute my 3, so I distribute 3. 3 times 5x is 15x, and 3 times 2 is 6 equals 15x. All right, so I want to get my x's together. So let's subtract 15x. Well, 15x minus 15x gives me 0 here. So all I have left on this side is 6. And then 15x minus 15x over here gives me 0. I don't have any x left. Well, this is different. So what do we think it means when we don't have an x left? It means that we have some kind of special solution, right? So if our x cancels out completely, we have a couple of options. One option is that there is no solution, and the other option is that there are infinitely many solutions. Okay? So to figure out which one you have, you will look at what you have in the end. Does 6 equal 0? The answer to that is no, so this is no solution. So you can either write no solution, or if you prefer to use a symbol, you can do a 0 with a slash. that just represents an empty set. All right, so let's look at number 8. I'm first going to have to distribute this negative 2. So negative 2 times 4y is negative 8y. And negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And then that's equal to this side, which I don't have anything I can do with this. So I'm going to go ahead and get my y's together. So I'm going to add 8y over here and add 8y over here. And what happens is they both cancel out. So all I have left is negative 2 equals negative 2. So what happens when your variable cancels out? You have a special case, right? If the two numbers left over do not equal, then you had no solution. If the two numbers left over are equal, then you have infinitely many solutions. You can write infinitely if you want. I just like to put the infinity sign. All right. Okay. So if you look at number 9, we're going to have to distribute on this side. So 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times negative p is negative 4p. On this side, we have negative 4p plus 4, because I can't put those together. So I notice that I have p's on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and add this 4p to both sides. And then I notice that my p's all cancel out. So all I have left on this side is 4, and all I have left on this side is 4. When your variable completely cancels out, you look at those two numbers. If it's a true statement, 4 does equal 4. You have infinitely many solutions. All right, so if I look at number 10, I've got 6m minus 1m. I can put those together, right? Those are like terms. So 6m minus 1m gives me 5m. On this side, I need to distribute. So 5m times 6, 5/6 times 6m gives me 5m. And 5/6 times negative 10 is going to give me negative 25, no, 50, sorry, I can't multiply. Negative 50 divided by 6. Now, that'll reduce, right, by 2, correct? So I can reduce the 50 over 6 by 2, which would give me 25 over 3. And again, remember, if you can't reduce that, just do it in your calculator. 50 divided by 6, and you get 25 over 3. All right, so I look at this and I say, okay, I should get my 5's together, so I'm going to subtract the 5m. So they cancel here, and they cancel here, so all I have left here is 0. And all I have left over here is the negative 25 over 3. So when my variables completely cancel out, I look at the two numbers. These are not equal numbers, so no solution. All right, a boat leaves New Orleans and travels upstream the Mississippi River for 4 hours. The return trip only takes 2.8 hours because the boat travels 3 miles per hour faster downstream due to the current. How far does the boat travel upstream? So we're looking for the distance. Let's just call that x. All right, how far? Well, I know that the distance going upstream is the same as the distance going downstream, correct? So if I make myself an equation, I can actually solve it. So I know that going upstream is a distance of X miles, right? So I can go X miles in 1 hour. Times it takes me 4 hours to go upstream because I'm fighting against the current, right? That would be equal to how long it takes me to go downstream, right? It only takes me 2.8 hours because I travel 3 miles an hour faster. So X plus 3 miles, and we should have put miles over here so we don't lose our units, over 1 hour times, it only took us 2.8 hours. So now if you think about this, and you do a lot of this in science too with conversions, you have X miles in 1 hour, your hours cancel, correct? So now you just have 4 times X miles is equal to, same thing here, hours cancel, and so you just have 2.8 times this stuff. Now, remember, if I have 2.8 and I'm multiplying that times more than one thing, I need parentheses. So now I just have an equation that I can solve. So 4x, I can't do anything with that right now. And over here I need to distribute. 2.8 times x is 2.8x. And then I get 2.8 times 3, which gives me 8.4. So I look and I see, okay, I have x's on both sides, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 2.8x so that I can move it over here with the 4x. So 4x minus 2.8x gives me 1.2x. This cancels, and then I have the 8.4 left over. So the last thing I have to do, since I'm multiplying by the 1.2 over here, is divide by 1.2. That cancels, so I get x is equal to 7. So I traveled 7 miles per hour. Upstream, right? How fast did I travel going downstream? Because it was actually how far, correct? So I don't need to box that in. I traveled 7 miles per hour upstream. So how far did I go? So if I traveled 7 miles per hour and it took me 4 hours, 7 times 4, that would give you 28 miles. Because think about it, if this is 7 miles in 1 hour, and then I had 4 hours, hours cancels, and 7 times 4, and then you have miles left. So 28 miles.